was a young kid. There was a fight, Jerry Quarry and Thad Spencer. And I watched it. Quarry won, so and I started following him. And I followed him through his career. I didn't start boxing until 15 as an amateur. It was actually the Newport News Boys Club in Newport News, Virginia. It was a recreation center. A man named Mr. Stokes ran it, and he gave me some. He told me probably the best advice I ever got as a boxer. Most important thing to do is road work and run. And it was casual. It was good, but I had several fights there. I fought in the Virginia area from there. But I didn't really have a coach. He was once a week. I basically trained myself. So after I competed in the Virginia AAU several times. Third time I won it. And then I decided to go to New York to try to be a boxer. I'd done several dry runs to New York at age 15 and 16 because I had relatives up there, being born in Brooklyn. And I would go to the gyms while they went to Breezy Point. So they didn't understand that. So I would go to the boxing gyms. So I was familiar with the gyms, Gleason's Gym, Telstar Gym, which was 28th Street. That was Gil Clancy's gym. So at 17, the night I graduated high school, I had $40 from graduation. And I mean, I had planned it as much as you could plan that. And I got on a bus at midnight from Newport News and took my chance. I got on and arrived in New York City at 7:30 in the morning. Actually 7:11. There was a clock that said 7:11, so I kind of took that as good luck. And I arrived. Well, there was a manager named Paddy Flood that I wanted to manage me.
Why Paddy? What did you know about Paddy?
Well, I knew he had a fighter named Bobby Cassidy that I liked from the magazines. He had Walter Seeley, who I liked. So I knew he was at a gym at Gramercy Gym, 14th Street. So Paddy at that time owned a restaurant called the Wig and Pen on, I think it was 60th and 5th. So I was going to propose to him, listen, I'll train at the gym for 2 weeks. If you don't want me, you don't have to pay me, and I'll work for you at this restaurant. That was going to be my opening speech. So I staked out the restaurant, 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning, 10 in the morning. There's no Paddy. Finally, I saw a porter, and I said, well, what's with this restaurant? Is Paddy here? And the porter said, no, it don't open till 6 p.m. I said, ah. So then I went to Plan B. I walked at Gleason's Gym, which was on 30th and 8th. And there was a man who had told me in one of my earlier visits, his name was Mac Williams, he was going to introduce me to Freddie Brown, the famous trainer. Yeah. So now I switched course and I went there. When I arrived, I was told Mac had passed away. But lo and behold, there comes Freddie Brown ambling down the street, and a world-class trainer, champion trainer, but he still had enough time to talk to a kid. And he let me try out, and then he kind of very, very kindly said he really didn't have the time for me, as he was getting on in years and I was too young. He did inquire why I didn't have boxing shoes. I had sneakers. So that having failed, I headed now to my original plan, which was Gramercy Gym on 14th Street, Paddy's gym. So I had to wait till 4 p.m. till it opened. So I sat in Union Square Park. I seen all the crazy people, the yelling, the screaming. And finally, 4 o'clock, I walked to the gym. Gym opened. I walked up the steps. And there was a man, Al Gavin, sitting there. He was the owner of the gym. And he asked me what I was there for. And I said, well, I'm looking for Paddy Flood. And he pointed. He says, that's his trainer over there, meaning Tony Janiro. So I walked over and I sat with Tony Janiro, and he told me he would work with me. I mean, he actually let me work out, and then he said he would work with me. He wouldn't be there the next day. He had to go to Nassau Coliseum for Fraser Foreman. He had a fighter on the undercard. And but to come in the gym Tuesday, loosen up, and then he'll see me Wednesday.
So your first impression when you finally get to meet Paddy?
Well, I didn't get to meet Paddy for a couple of weeks, but he didn't come to the gym a lot, but the first I heard of him was when I was there was Chuck Wepner was fighting Andre the Giant, and Paddy Flood jumped in the ring and broke his hand hitting Andre the Giant. So I said, "Oh boy, that's my guy." And then several weeks went by. Paddy showed up at the gym, and he was tough, charismatic, very very sharp, very nice. He asked me a question. He goes, "Kevin, what's the most important thing?" And I thought he meant money, so I said, "Money's the most important thing." He says, "No, Kevin, loyalty is." And that was Paddy. He had several fighters. He had Cassidy, he had Elson, Ray J. Elson, good fighter. He had the great Edwin Virouette. He was connected to Don King. So the first part of my arrival actually went very well, because within 6 hours I was hooked up with Paddy Flood, his trainer, and Paddy Flood was hooked up with Don King. So that's quite good for one half afternoon. But now the only problem was I had to be able to fight, and that's what became difficult. Well, there was a man named Vern DePaul, and he was trying to encourage me to go into the Golden Gloves. And they would have put me at sub-novice, but then I would have had to give up my 20 fights that I had in Virginia. So I didn't want to pretend that part of my career hadn't happened. So Paddy told me, "Listen, you go pro, you fight pro, you had 20 amateur fights, let me manage you, you go stick with me in my plan." So that's it. I turned pro, which was quite easy. It just means you're getting paid. It doesn't mean you're good. A pro fighter is just a guy who gets paid, win or lose. Right, well, Comac was my second pro fight. My first was in Albany. I won a decision in Albany. Customato was at ringside, which was a great thrill. Then I went to Comac. One of the treats of that was I got to ride with Paddy Flood and Al Braverman out to it, so I got to hear all their talk, and that was interesting. I was in the back seat. Fight itself, I didn't do really well. I got stopped in the first round. I got a cut eye. I got butted, and they stopped it, and that's it. And lost. Bobby Cassidy was the main event that night. He fought. He stopped a guy, I believe, named Dennis Horn in the second round, and I got to see him. I got to see him in the dressing room. Obviously, I saw him in the gym at Gramercy. I used to watch him train at Gramercy, but I never boxed with Bobby Cassidy.
How come?
I was told, well, first off, Bobby Cassidy only came to the gyms. This was near the latter part of his career. He did a lot of his training in Long Island, and then would only come for the last 2 weeks intense in Gramercy Gym. So he wasn't playing around by the time he got to Gramercy Gym, and I was told he's not the guy to work with. He's serious, and so they never. I never asked to box with him, but I knew he was tough, and he hit very hard. He was a light heavyweight. I was a middleweight, so I never worked with him, though I used to watch him, and he was very kind. He was a good guy. He was a true fighter, a real fighter. I immediately recognized Bobby O'Brien at Gramercy Gym, again from the magazines, and I boxed with him only one time. And they put me in with him, and it was like my third day sparring, and I hit him to the, he got rough. I had a sunburn. He scraped the sunburn. I turned my back on him. He kept punching me. "Don't you turn your back on me." He was very rough. He was trying to teach me a lesson to man up, and I was very shook up after, and my trainer Tony had a big smile. He says, "You know why he did that?" He says, "Because you hurt him to the body." I don't know how true that is. But Bobby O'Brien was a loyal soldier. He showed up. He must have worked with Mustafa Hamsho 3 years after he retired. Tough, no quit, hard, dogged journeyman. And the punches probably affected him. It could not have affected him. And Paddy used him for Hamsho. He couldn't get sparring for Hamsho, but it was Bobby O'Brien. I remember seeing him trudge in during a blizzard from Long Island because Hamsho needed sparring, and Hamsho was no bargain to spar with.
Did you ever spar with Hamsho?
I sparred many times with Hamsho.
Talk about sparring with Hamsho.
It's like fighting an octopus. And at that time he was 22, I was 17, 18. And everyone else I could do all right with in the gym, but he had my number, and maybe the first day I did good with him. After that, never got the better, never, ever. And then, obviously, the whole world saw who he was. We didn't know who he was at that time, but I knew he was someone special, and he was strong, and he was smart, and he was tough, and he was cagey, and just there's nothing I could do with him. And I really, I knew he was special, and then eventually he became special. Number 2 middleweight in the world for several years. He would have been world middleweight champion today when you got 3, 4 world champions. Hamsho would have been the other champion. He just had Hagler. That was his only problem.
That's true in many ways, because at first he was Rocky Estafire, if you remember correctly, right? Paddy gave him the name Rocky Estafire.
Yeah, well, I got there when Hamsho had about 6 fights. Yeah, his name, we called him Mike Estafire. There was Rocky. We still refer to him as Mike a lot. He lost his first pro fight. He has a draw in his second, and then he goes 32 straight wins, only maybe 1 draw with Reggie Jones in Newark, New Jersey, who was an Olympic bronze medalist.
Right.
So he was just extremely tough, extremely determined. Nothing would stop. He's the toughest man I've met in my life, and I met him my first week, and I think he still holds the toughest man. Had a lot of success fighting that he deserved every bit of it.
Your third fight was at Embassy Hall, another pretty famous fight club at that time.
No, it was good. It was Danny Perez, a good fighter. He beat me 4-round decision. It was nice. De Niro and LaMotta were there. Jake LaMotta, Robert De Niro. Al Certo was the promoter. One of my all-time favorite fighters was the main event. He lost. It was Justice Ortiz, a journeyman, another great Gramercy Gym fighter.
Who beat him that night?
I think a guy named Earl LeBird stopped him in 7. Local fighters. Yeah. I mean that's the way it was back then. It was hard luck. $100. I made $100 for 4 rounds, and that's it. And a great place, great fights, and Hamsho was very kind to me after the fight. He helped me, put ice on my bruises, and he's a good man, Mustafa.
Yeah.
Well, Gramercy, and it's captured in the movie Raging Bull, so it's immortal. It'll always be there. It was 3 flights up. You could hear the bag. You could hear the rope as you're walking up. You walk through the door. The smell caught you right away. The smell, the sweat, ropes, gloves, leather. It was a very fair place. It was run by Bob Jackson and Al Gavin. And they were 2 tough guys. Bob was a prison guard. Al was the early guy. He was a Parks Department worker. And Al would probably work till 5. Then Bob would come in and handle it till late. And they were great. They spent their whole lives with kids for no money. Forget the champions maybe that didn't come out of there, but policemen came out of there. Maybe a lawyer came out of there. I mean, they really helped people. Bob Jackson, Al Gavin gave years and years of their lives to kids. So, and it was the place was a good education for me. It was my NYU. I was there 2.5 years. I learned how to behave. I learned how to, I hope I learned you don't take advantage, because when you're taking advantage, it hurts. And Al didn't put up with anyone taking advantage of people.
How did you get into Raging Bull? Tell us that story.
Well, as a kid, obviously it was rough for me. I lived on the Bowery. 6 months after I arrived in New York, I found the Bowery, which is $1.60 a night, but I had my little room. That's all I needed. And I'd go to the movies. So I see this movie, Taxi Driver. And I really liked that movie. And I thought, not for the psychodrama, I just liked it because to me it made sense. I understood Travis, who was the main character, and I saw all the places that I was. I worked on 42nd Street at Nedick's. A lot of the shooting was right by the Gramercy Gym on 13th Street. Gramercy was 14th Street. I seen De Niro helping Jodie Foster. I thought that was a great thing in the movie, and I said to myself, I said, boy, I wish someone would rescue me like he rescued her. Then, lo and behold, there he is. I go, oh, there he is. There's Travis. So they were looking at people to box with him. Jake had trained him, but now they were looking for people to box with him, so he wanted to work with, let's say, real boxers. So we had tryouts, and Jake watched, and they picked who they wanted, and I was one of the people they picked to spar with him.
And what was it like sparring with De Niro? How good was he?
He was quite good. I mean, he was 35, so you got to figure that's against him. Plus, this is what no one gives him credit for. He had to take on the style of someone that wouldn't have been his style. So he had to portray Jake. So not only is he being a boxer, which he's not, now he has to play a style that would not have been his style. So he had two things going against him, and he carried it off very well. He sparred 10 months on and off. Every other day we'd work. And he became a fighter. He worked very hard.
Any interesting moments during the sparring?
He wanted no special treatment. In fact, he felt guilty that I was holding back a little, and he got a catcher's protection to put on me, so he felt less. He felt better to hit me because I was a little more protected. No, he fought. There was one day in particular that he crossed a line. This was, I guess he challenged himself, and he went at me, and he hurt me. And I actually hit him, and I felt his face in my glove. I know I hurt him. And he tested himself that day. That was the day, I guess, that was near the end, and that was the day he really became a fighter. No complaining, no nothing, and that was the day he crossed the line, and I guess he became a fighter.
Did you study at all for your part? Did you study at all, Janiro at all? Or?
No, I was not gonna. No, that's what we were. I mean, we rehearsed for several months the scenes, but as far as like studying off, no. I mean, not gonna study.
Yeah. And what was the actual filming like? I heard it can be, over and over and over. And what was the actual filming of the fight scenes?
It was done in California. They did the fight scenes in California, and Jake was on site. It was, I mean, for whatever little we went through, De Niro went through it all. I mean, one thing De Niro did smart, yeah, it was over and over and over. I mean, he also had me as what's called his stand-in through the whole movie. So I was his stand-in plus Janiro.
Oh, you were his stand-in?
Yes. So I got to see the whole movie. And what De Niro did smart, he lowered a heavy bag in the ring off camera. So when he entered, he would hit the heavy bag, and then he would walk into the shot. So he was coming from somewhere with that energy. And you're talking 8-hour days, 7-hour days for 10 straight weeks, and he did it.
And then talk about the scene that was cut out, the weigh-in scene.
I was the pretty boy, Tony Janiro. That's who I played. I mean, I changed, obviously. But we had a scene where we weighed in for the fight, and he blows me a kiss. And they edited it. But really, if they should, I mean, he was really scary in that scene, to staring at me and then blowing the kiss. So I think it would have been a great scene for him. Not me, but him. And Sean Penn once described him as noble, De Niro. And I guess that's about as good as it can get. He's noble. He's a good person. Scorsese, I mean, quick, smart. I mean, first when I saw Scorsese, I said, "Oh, that's the guy that was bothering Travis in the back of the cab," because he was in the movie Taxi Driver. Yeah. And very sharp, very smart, very, what do you want to say? He's probably the greatest director of American film. After you get a taste of it, you do 20 weeks on a movie like Raging Bull. You're young, you're 21. De Niro had told me, he goes, "Kevin," he goes, "I want you to take a look around, and when this is over, I want you to come to me, and I want to help you. Tell me what you want." So at the end of the movie, I have to go up to him, and I tell him what I want, which is an actor. I go in his trailer, and I says, "I'd like to be an actor." And he goes, "I want to be an actor." I says, "Yeah." He goes, "I want to be an actor." That's how he does it. And I went, "Yeah." And he went, "Got to go to school." I went, "Oh boy, school. Can't you do something?" And he says, he wrote down some names: Stella Adler, Herbert Berghoff Studios. They told me, "Don't go to Stella Adler. She screams a lot." And I went to school. I started passing out pictures, a resume. I had one credit, Raging Bull, and got seen for a part in a movie called Prince of the City. Got 4 scenes in that, but again was edited out of the movie, cut out of that movie. Then was with my agent, got a movie called We're Fighting Back, which was based loosely on the Guardian Angels, and that I got. Tried to do more. Went back to De Niro for a movie called King of Comedy. And at that time, I had something happen to me that probably defined a lot of my life. I became at 22, I became an alcoholic very quickly. It hit me very hard. My parents were alcoholics. It hit me early. Did a lot of damage. I worked on King of Comedy with De Niro, and that was it. I left. That movie was over. I pursued it. Another 8 years, never really clicked again. Had some good auditions, but wasn't serious. Was damaged with the alcoholism, and perhaps it maybe not all that good. A combination of the 3. Went to about 31, broke, and I kind of stepped back from it. I often say, I says, I met a tough-talking tough-acting Italian guy in a gym. And this guy invited me into an organization. And the organization promised fame, fortune, but all it gave me was betrayal, fear. And they said, well, organized crime? And I said, no, Screen Actors Guild. And that was it. At 31, I was broke, and I kind of drifted off. One thing I remember about Ellen Barkin, I was 22, she was 27. And we were talking one day, and Ellen Barkin says, I studied acting for 10 years. And I said, oh my God. And she said, before I went on an audition. And she says, my first audition I went on, I beat out Jodie Foster. I said, oh boy. So she was very, very serious. Her success was no surprise. She was good. She was hardworking. She was serious. She was smart. She hit her marks. She knew what she was doing. She was way ahead of me, and but good, very good. And I'm very happy for her success, and it's no surprise.
But you got a positive review out of it. Talk about that.
But Vern did call me one morning. He says, "There's a woman, Judith Christ." I says, "Okay," and he says she gave you a good review in the TV Guide. So that meant something, because I've come to see she was quite a tough critic. Maybe she's being kind. We were young. Later in life, I went to the Teamsters. I worked 30 years, local 814, became a negotiator, shop steward, retired now. I have many memories of Gramercy Gym, many memories of the fighters. It's a hard business. I wouldn't advise it for anyone. I was very fortunate. I got away from it. But those that don't, it's a tough field. My first day in New York, as I was leaving Gramercy Gym, I looked at the New York skyline. It was my first day in New York, and I stared at the skyline, and I said to myself, obviously, I know you don't even know I'm here, but you're not going to beat me. 47 years here, the first day I knew my opponent was New York, and I'm still here, and the fight goes on.